anyone else that happens to see this. This is just, well, I would like it to be a quick message, but it's probably not going to be because I'm going to get into like storytelling time in a moment. But basically, wanted to just jump on initially and say I'm very sorry that last weekend and this weekend there have been no live streams as planned. The reason for that being that last weekend I was extremely busy and burned out and everything from like a solid week of like 60, I don't know, like how, I don't know how many hours it was, but I was basically working from like, you know, maybe noonish, 1 o'clock to about 1 or 2 in the morning every night in the studio trying to, you know, get new releases sorted out and do some mastering work and get orders shipped out. As I'm sure a lot of you know, I've been very behind on some stuff after a number of things put me back. The USPS rate hike in January, my kid got the flu and then gave it to us. And then my garage door busted and I had to drop like $400 unexpectedly and couldn't pay my cell phone bill and all that wonderful stuff. So it's just been a mess. So I'm trying to recover from all of that. And at the same time, this past week, I was planning to get everything lined up to take a trip to Chicago to see one of my favorite musicians ever, Wolfgang Voigt, perform as Gas at the Chicago Art Institute. It was sort of a, well, the cats are very mad at me for leaving them. It was a once in a lifetime situation kind of thing, where when the tickets came up and I saw Wolfgang was doing a Gas tour of like 6 or 8 dates or something in North America, and one of them was in an art gallery that has some of the best art collection in the entire world. 5 hours from me, it was just sort of like, okay, I'm buying the tickets, I'll figure out how later. I'm doing it. And so really I wanted to get on and thank everyone on Patreon, because if it wasn't for you guys giving me that little bit of extra financial support at the beginning of every month, this trip to Chicago may never have been possible. I mean, it was tight as it was, and Chicago's a very expensive city to stay in. The hotel was just immensely ridiculous for myself, my wife, my mother-in-law, and my daughter Penelope to stay in a single room, but we did it. The parking was ridiculous. You know, even buying coffee in that city is ridiculous. But it was great. I've never been to a city like that before, that big, at least since I went to New York when I was like 16, and New York was just disgusting. I'm told it's cleaner now. Apologies to any New Yorkers who will take offense to that. But yeah, but Chicago is a beautiful city. I can't wait to go back. There's so much I wanted to do that I didn't have time for. But this video is going to basically also be the first of a new series, much like the MMFC-LS series Designate has been for live streams. I'm going to be doing a new subset series like that for basically just monologuing. I've been encouraged by a few of you over time to just, you know, do more videos where I'm just sitting here talking in front of a camera. And although that is probably one of my least favorite things to do ever, I'm still just trying to get my head around what people in this community enjoy about my work or about me as a person, and I'm trying to be really open and flexible about that. So in the spirit of just trying new things, I'm going to start basically doing some vlogging, I guess you'd call it. This will be the first one, just me telling you how my trip to Chicago went and what it was like and what happened, because I think it was a very interesting thing. But beyond that, I'm going to be using this format more to do some things that I've been planning on for a while, like I'd like to do in the next couple weeks, kind of a gear tour in the studio and go piece by piece by piece, gear piece, to, you know, like here's this drum machine. This is what I've used it on these records you might recognize. This is what it sounds like when you plug it into the mixer, and this is what it does. You know, and here's when I got it and why, and is it rare? Is it stupid? Is it digital? You know, whatever. What are the things about it that make it interesting for me to have it? So I know that's not going to appeal to everybody, but I know a few of you are definitely into the gear train spotting thing. And I am an open window here, open door, open book, whatever you want to call it. I don't have any secrets about what I'm using in the studio. I mean, it's not like anyone could come in here and use this exact same stuff and make like a Coppice Halifax record. It's just not going to be possible. So yeah, and those videos will be divided up because there's so much stuff behind me to go through. There's going to be one that's all drum machines. There's going to be one that's all synths. There's going to be one that's all instruments. There's going to be one that's all processors and mixers, and things like tape machines and stuff. There may even be another one that's just for weird stuff that isn't really anything. Like I have a bunch of strange piezo electric microphones, and I have little noisemakers and things that I've been given throughout the years from my wife. Like one of her favorite things to do for our anniversaries is get me any kind of weird, no matter if it's a toy or if it's just some weird handmade thing off of Etsy or something, some kind of a sound making or sound processing thing. And so I've ended up with some really unique, weird stuff that even if it is a toy, I end up incorporating it into something because, as you can see, this is just a kitchen sink approach to making music. I'm not going to say all my gear is bad, but the saying when I laid tile as a tile maker's apprentice or tile layer's apprentice around 2000, he was this really interesting deadhead guy from Buffalo, New York, who had really interesting ways of saying, describing things. And we would go do these jobs where we'd be expected to make these like beautiful, artful tile installations and tile jobs, but for people who didn't want to spend pretty much any money and didn't want to buy nice materials or anything. So he said we were making chicken salad with chicken shit. And I've always kind of kept that in mind, that your tools don't necessarily have to reflect the thing that you make. And so I don't ever really discount anything, in terms of, is this supposed to be a toy? Is it not? Who cares? I mean, if you can use it, you can use it. And I you put me on a desert island with a kazoo and I'd still be making like 8-disc box sets or something. So anyway, so that said, I'm going to get into storytelling time, show and tell, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, so I went to Chicago to see Gas. Gas, as you may or may not know, is Wolfgang Voigt, probably one of his most famous projects, Wolfgang Voigt being from Cologne in Germany, Compact Records, one of the sort of originators of a lot of minimal techno and experimental techno stuff over there, as well as art installation-y type stuff and all kinds of things. I mean, he did a polka techno record recently. I mean, so the guy just does everything. He's just on his own level, basically. And so at this point, he's in his 50s. And not only did I never think that we'd get another Gas album, which we got last year after 18 years of no more Gas music, and that album was Narcopop, and it was just incredible for me. But like I said, when I saw he was doing a North American tour, only like 6 or 8 dates, one of which was an auditorium seated show in an art gallery in Chicago, I said, forget it. That's a no-brainer. So I bought the tickets, worked out kind of a loose plan to go with my wife and kid and mother-in-law. And we decided, because it fell on a Thursday, to make like kind of a short weekend, out of it. We came back Saturday night. And yeah. And on top of that, the plan for it grew into another interesting turn, because it was ahead of time enough that I hit up another influence and good friend of mine, who I've never met in person until now, Steve Hitchell from Echospace Detroit, CV313, Echospace, Variant, Intrusion, all that stuff. He's incredibly prolific. I want to say maybe not quite as prolific as I am. It's not a competition, but he's a huge influence on a lot of my music. Has been for years, very long time. And so we've actually been keeping up a texting and phone and email correspondence since about 2012, right after Penelope was born. And he, we always wanted to meet up, and it's just been kind of out of out of the cards until really recently when I moved up to Ohio, because obviously South Carolina and Detroit are not near each other. Um, Detroit and Ohio are not really near each other relatively, but they're a lot closer. So basically, I hit up Steve and I said, "Listen, if you can get there, I will buy you your tickets. Tickets were $20 a pop. I mean, I could spring for that." And I figured, worst case scenario, I buy his tickets, he can't go, and I've donated some money to an art gallery. You know, fine, that's great. I'm happy to support that. Um, but he was ecstatic about it. We made the plans. He worked it out so that he and his girlfriend could come and meet us there at the show. So we got there. We got to the show. All's well. And before Steve can meet us, I'm sitting there in the seat waiting for him. And the most surreal thing happened. Someone at the show, at the gas show, recognized me, like by face, like as Mr. Coppice Halifax person. And it really freaked me out. I mean, the guy was very nice. And if he sees this, I don't want him to think I feel angry or upset or anything. I'm just not used to being fingered out of a crowd like that. And it was certainly a surreal thing, probably for him too, because I'm sure he didn't expect to run into me. But no, this guy comes over and gets down, next to where my wife and I are sitting, and says, "Hi, is your name Brian?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And do you happen to record as Coppice Halifax? And I think I said, "You're freaking me out a little bit, but yeah. What can I do for you?" And he explained that he's just been a really, really big fan for years, and I guess recognized me because he caught the ridiculous video I made of, for you guys actually, recording the Country Low single a while back, where I'm in the, over there making dick jokes and stuff, and all that. So I said, "Cool, that's fine," and we talked for a few minutes, and I can't even really remember it because my brain was still just like trying to process like that I had been recognized somewhere. And it was interesting, I guess. But anyway, very nice guy. I plan to talk to him again soon. He gave me his email address, and I think he mentioned he does art installation work involving children and music, and I couldn't really gather specifics from that, but it sounds interesting. I'd love to take the guy out for a coffee if he's in town again. So, but from there, yeah. So while he's sitting there talking to me, Steve and his girlfriend get there, and it's just this hilarious moment where, like, instead of me freaking out at Steve showing up, I'm trying to handle this fan interaction that I wasn't expecting to have. But anyway, finally, I talked to Steve. Show's about to start. We're shaking hands. We're happy to see each other, and gas comes on, and it's whole place goes dead silent. And we looked at the capacity for the theater. It held 900 people, and it was a sold-out show. And it was just the quietest I think 900 people have ever been in my life. But it was immense. It was just such an amazing show. It was just him standing there on stage left with a little podium and a laptop, and this huge screen, in this theater. And it was basically like, it's like when I listen to Eliane Radigue, and I think I mentioned this to one of you in email recently, that there's very few kinds of music or pieces of music or artists that I can listen to their work and it actually makes me feel like I've taken a drug, and I haven't. And to be clear, like, I used to take a lot of drugs from about age 14 on until 2002 or 2003. And then I just quit everything because I was sick of it making my music sound like shit. Nothing against taking drugs, and I certainly will still get high with people in a social capacity and would love to do that if it were legal here. But I just am too focused on my work to bother with any of that stuff anymore. And also now I'm a parent and all that. So anyway, not knocking the drug thing, not advocating it, just kind of saying. But this was definitely like a drug experience. And it was just amazing how, it was like when I saw Autechre. You feel like you're just displaced completely into this thing that this person has made, and within that they're able to manipulate temperature and time and gravity and vibration, and it's just you know, and at the end of it, you're just plucked from the womb again, and it just feels almost bad. But you know, all those endorphins got sucked out of you. But no, so anyway, so the show ends. I've just got my jaw on the floor, you know, so does Steve. Steve and I are just in awe of the whole thing. And we talked about it for a bit while people filed out. And leading into this, about a week prior to going, I had, I guess you could say, the foresight to email Wolfgang Voigt, because I already had his email address from a while back when I bought a copy of his Kafka tracks and Rückverzaubung 4 CD release that came with an art piece that's actually a painting of his that's hanging on the wall behind this camera. I bought it directly from him back in the day because it was a really scarce thing. And anyway, but he was very kind enough to sort that, sort that out for me back in the day. So I had his contact information, and I said, what the hell, you know, because I wanted to see if I could get something signed. Not because I'm trying to increase the value of something I have of this person's work, but more just that, you know, to outline the improbability of this event ever coming to pass, and that I really just would love to have this sort of thing to document that it happened. And so I thought, what better thing to ask him to sign than I have a copy of his Raster Noten Gas art book that came out. It was issued as a limited thing back when the Knot and Fern reissue sets happened, the first time he reissued the Gas stuff. And it's a beautiful book. I mean, it's literally just still shots from what looks to be almost the exact same source that was the filmic side of the Gas performance, just trees and the black German forest and all these different lighting and opacity configurations and stuff. And it's just, and it came with the CD too, but I took the CD out because I didn't want anything bad to happen to it. But basically it's like kind of a collector's item. So I said, listen, if you're open to it, I emailed him and said, will you sign this book for me? I mean, I said, I'm not going to be mad if you don't want to do any autographs, or if you're just not interested in that. I mean, Lord knows he's doing like, you know, 6 or 8 dates in like a 10-day, I think, time period, they told me. So he's probably extremely lagged. I mean, I flew to Germany in 2007 to play in Augsburg. It took me a whole day to sleep off the jet lag. It was just insane. So I wouldn't put it past this guy to be like, no, I'm just there to play. I'm not seeing any people. I'm not dealing with fans. And I'm, you know, I would respect that. And also I told him I don't want to mess up my book potentially if I'm, you know, bringing it to the show, and you're not going to sign it anyway. So, but he wrote back and was like, yeah, I'll sign it. But he didn't say where, he didn't say when. And so after the show ended, Steven and I were just like, where the hell's this guy at? Like, it's time to find Wolfgang, basically, you know. So we started on up the aisle and went to the part of the stage he walked off of, and I figured, okay, maybe there's like a door or something, and yeah, the little one is laughing in the bedroom with my wife. All right, let me turn that down so I can finish doing this. All right. Okay, so sorry about that. That's a little speaker there into my daughter's bedroom. She can't hear anything in here, but I can hear her. And when I'm down here working late at night, it's how she says goodnight to me, which makes me so sad to hear a little like 6-year-old going, "Good night, Daddy," every night, and I have to work. But anyway, it's cool. So we go down to the edge of the stage. There's a door. There's a couple guys standing in front of it, and one of them I can hear like a European accent of some kind. So I walk up and I say, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you know, I emailed Wolfgang about a week ago, and he said he would sign my book after the show. Is he back there? Can I bring my book to get him to sign it? And the one guy says, yeah, what's your name? And I said, oh, my name's Brian. And he's like, we've been waiting for you. I'm just thinking, okay, that was not expected. So I said, okay, cool. He says, wait right here. And so he goes through the door, and the other guy standing with him was an American guy who I guess was helping with the lighting and stuff for the performance, and said, yeah, he was just talking about you. And I'm like, am I really the only reason they're even hanging around after the show? But I guess he knew I was coming, so I said that's cool. So Steve's with me, not saying anything. I think Steve's just kind of like a little frozen up by this, and the guy comes back through the door and says, "Come on back. He'll sign your book." And I said, "Hey, can Steve go with me? Echospace Detroit," trying to like use his. I figured Wolfgang has to know who Echospace Detroit are, and figured maybe even was a fan. But of course, without batting an eyelash, the German guy was just like real apprehensive and just said, "Just keep it short." And so I said, okay. So we're going back, and it's like it's almost like Wayne's World when they go to get to meet Alice Cooper or something, and that's how it felt. And so we get back there, and he's just standing there like this, either in a welcoming pose to say hello, or and maybe he was being like Christ, but but it's Wolfgang fucking Voigt. And so we go in, and of course I just start gibbering away like an idiot, frothing at the mouth, and oh my God, your show is so amazing. And, and I really try to pull that back, but I never thought I was going to meet Wolfgang Voigt. I mean, really. And much less like be invited back into his little dressing room, and nobody else was there but me and him and Stephen fucking Hitchell, by the way, who, I've been I wrote on Facebook to my friends, this was like going to see Elvis perform, but when you went to the show, you went with George Harrison. That's sort of how it felt to go with Steve Hitchell to see Gas, So I'm in this room with these two guys and whoever else. I think there were a couple handlers Wolfgang had, handlers or whatever, friends, compatriots. So he takes the book and he's like, how do you want me to, where do you want me to sign it? And I'm just like dumbfounded, because I'm like, I think I said something like, it's just an honor to have you sign your work. So wherever you want. And I handed him the pen, and he gets down on the floor on his knees and is opening up the cover leaflet of the book, which is all this matte black surface, and just starts writing my name and signing it very elaborately. And I would show you a picture, but it's still upstairs in my packed stuff. But yeah, so I'm just telling him, oh, the show was amazing, and Steve's standing there like a statue. Like, I don't even know if he knows what to say. I think Steve mentioned something at some point about how back in like 94, when Steve wasn't even really a musician, he was just a promoter or a live person of some kind in Detroit or Chicago. It was one of the two. But he flew Mike Inc. over for like a rave, and the rave actually got busted by the cops with helicopters and everything, like right after Mike Inc. set up. I guess Wolfgang never even got to play. And they were talking about it, and he remembered, like, Voigt was even like naming the opening act and stuff that was there, and it's just like hilarious how that went. But anyway, so at that point I realized, shit, I brought Wolfgang a gift of some CDs of my music just as a thank you, and I left it in my wife's purse because I didn't come with any like backpack or anything to the show. This is a lesson to you guys out there without wives or girlfriends, that if you go to a concert and you want to bring any extra cool stuff, stick it in their purses, because it's the best way. No one will ever search it. But anyway, yeah, so I said, Steve, do me a solid, run out there and get what Sophie has in her purse. And of course I just said it like that. So he looked at me like get what Sophie has in her purse. And I said, no, she'll know what I'm talking about. So he goes out there, and then I said, okay, listen, I'm with Wolfgang here, and I'm like, I got 2 questions I want to ask you, and you don't have to answer them. And I thought long and hard about this. If I got to see him, what would I say? And there were 2 questions. One was just from the show we saw. There were numerous sequences during the set that really felt familiar. Like even Steve said, it's like that had to have either been on Pop or Koenigsforce. There were these passages of melody and chords and stuff that were just like, you could tell he'd probably processed them or pitched them or stretched them or something to work it into the set. Because the set felt wholly unique. It was a completely new thing. I think I didn't recognize a whole lot beyond little fragments. But I did want to say, were those fragments from the old Millet Plateau records, or were they from were they just, was it a coincidence? And I think he played it off. I'm pretty sure they were, but he didn't really want to tell us. So he was like, no, it was mostly sequences from the sessions for Narco Pop, and it was all the newer stuff. So who the hell knows? I mean, Gas deals in such abstracts. Maybe it was stuff I remembered from Narcopop and was just displacing it, because this is music that plays with your sense of time and space. Um, so I'm not real surprised that I'm foggy whenever I try to think about specifics about it. But but yeah, by then, at some point Steve had gone and got Sophie, and Sophie and Steve's girlfriend were back there with us then. They finally let them back. I learned later that the guys at the door were like, "No, no one else back," and then when finally Steve came out and got him, I guess they like shoved them all back there, and yeah, so can't blame them for trying. I'm sure Wolfgang was very tired, but so anyway, he so he signed my stuff. He answered the question kind of obliquely, and I said, "Well, the second question was a bit more specific." I said, and a bit of backstory on this. The 4 Millet Plateau records by Gas back in the day are all just very, whatever, different grades of color, shading, and stuff on forestry. It's all forest imagery, just trees and woods and leaves and that kind of stuff. And then there was nothing for 18 years. Everyone thought the project was over, and then he did Narcopop. And on Narcopop's cover, in with all the bluish forestry and gas imagery, is like a building kind of right there on the edge of the shot. And I thought that was strange, and it doesn't seem like something that could have ever been an oversight, because everything about Gas is so designed and deliberate, that there had to have been a reason. So, so I said, Wolfgang, Mr. Voigt, I don't even know if I was addressing him by name or anything, but I was like, is there a significance about the building being in this picture? And I think initially he thought I was asking what the building was, because he said, no, it doesn't matter what the building is. It's just a building. And I said, no, but is there like a conceptual significance to there being something man-made suddenly thrust into the continuity of this thing that was otherwise, there was nothing man-made about it. It was all just nature, visually speaking. And he kind of smirked a little and raised his eyebrow and said, "You pay a lot of attention to this stuff, don't you?" And so I felt a little sheepish then, like I had really kind of geeked out on him. But he again, he gave me kind of a really oblique, not really an answer, which was cool, because, I like when people are willing to answer your questions about their creative work without, dispelling all the magic about it. And I didn't want him to. So he basically said something along the lines of, yes, it's related to the concept of the work or something like that. But he didn't really answer why or what it meant or anything, which was fine. Because, Lord knows, his follow-up to Gas project was this other project called Rückversalberung, which was basically, he even said as much in interviews, it's Gas without any rhythms. It's beatless Gas, basically. And I have a bunch of the Rückversalberung records, but Rückversalberung in German means reverse enchantment. And I've always wondered if there is this very specific line through his stuff that is basically that idea of, this preservation of magic, conceptually speaking and creatively speaking. It's this transmuting, alchemical kind of thing, where it is trying to make something that is more than the sum of its parts. And, and stuff like that you wouldn't want to ask too many questions about, because it might spoil it. And so I kind of like that he was more ambiguous about that, and I should have expected it. I don't know what I really expected at all, to be really frank. But anyway, so at this point, Steve comes back. The ladies are back. Sophie hands me this thing that I put together, which many of you would recognize. It was the first 5-disc set for year 1 of the Static Farming series. All the 20-minute, droney, dubby techno, ambient techno EPs I did as Compass Halifax a few years ago, which I felt was a good, like, if I'm going to give Voigt anything, for one, don't give him Verdant Acre, because that's like the most, like, that was literally me sitting down and going, well, we're probably not going to get any more Gas records, so let me make some of my best facsimiles. And I was very transparent about that. It was all done out of love and respect. And then he came back and gave us Gas, so I wondered if maybe in the cosmos I stirred it enough and, you know, got him to go back or something. It'd be cool. But anyway, but I wasn't going to give him that because it was too overt and it was too on the sleeve, as they say, on the nose, or there's some saying in there that I'm not getting right, but you guys know what I mean. It was just too direct and obvious. So I said, let me give him something that was influenced by his work very traceably, but not overt, you know, something that's got its own identity. And Static Farming was very much that. Static Farming was really, really influenced by a lot of the early compact catalog, like his work, and Dedinger, and Jonas Bering, and Pole, and a whole bunch of stuff from back then. You know, and so, but it's got its own thing going on. It's. I mean, parts of it are almost like Working Man's Drone with techno beats in there, you know, and it's just got its own thing going. So I said, all right, that's a really cool set. And of course, you guys probably know these sets, these 5-disc sets I do, and well, the 6-disc or the 8-disc ones as well. They're all in these black, like VHS sized cases. And so when I handed it to him, he got this real confused look on his face, and I realized later, I think it was because he thought I was handing him a VHS tape. And I'm sure fans have given him all kinds of weird shit throughout the years, but yeah, but I said, no, it's music, it's my music, you don't have to listen to it. I said, this is just the best way I can think of to thank you for all the work you've done throughout the years. Because in my mind, I mean, there's no better compliment I can give to somebody than to just give them work that's been inspired by their work. And, you know, so whether he listens to it or not is irrelevant, you know, and I included inside the case a little note basically saying exactly that, along with a whole bunch of Bandcamp codes to pretty much everything I've got Bandcamp codes for that are printed. So like the Valley Filter EPs and stuff. And, yeah. And so he said something in German to one of the guys with him, and I guess gave it to the guy to put it somewhere. And he said, of course I'll listen to it. And I said, okay, cool. You know, so we'll see. You know, kind of fantasizing a bit, it would be pretty awesome if he got into it a little bit, at least, just knowing he liked it, you know, because whether artists will admit this or not, all of us need just a little bit of validation. And the best kind of validation comes from people that you already respect and love. And that is really the highest, you know, that's when people ask me in interviews, what would you consider success? For me, it's not money or fame or notoriety or anything like that, living in luxury. It's the ability to work with the people that have influenced and inspired you. Like, that to me means you're successful. And I feel like I'm completely successful at that point because I've been able to work with people like Steve Hitchell and Attack 9 out in California, and you know, Jim Kirby is the Caretaker out in the UK, and you know, all these lists of people. I could go on and on and on who have influenced my work in some fundamental way, and now I'm friends with them, or I know them, or I've worked with them, or I've put something out at their label. That's success. So if Wolfgang Voigt liked something I did, that would be right up there on the list. And that would be great. It would be enough. I wouldn't need to like put anything out on his label or anything like that. But anyway, so at that point, I'm ready for the interaction to be done because I don't want to overstay my welcome. And I wasn't going to ask for a photograph or anything because I find that that's almost crossing the line into, unless you really know who you're talking to and dealing with. I almost find that asking for pictures is a little disrespectful because it puts people on the spot. And I was more than content with just talking to him, shaking his hand, thanking him, giving him some music. He signed my book. But then, of course, as if on cue, Steve's girlfriend was like, let's all get a picture. So I'm thinking, all right, well, now it's going to get weird, you know, if it's going to get weird. And thankfully it didn't. And he was like all about it. And we all got in there. So I have 2 pictures of me and Steve and his girlfriend and Wolfgang Voigt kind of doing the big arms thing around us. And just crazy. Can't even believe that it happened. And so we said our goodbyes. I said good luck on the rest of the tour. Have, you know, safe flight. I don't think he's going to need any luck for it because if he just does what he did when he saw us, it was one of the best live experiences I've ever, you know, I mean, it was so profound. And I could just sit here and spiel on for another hour just talking about the set, to be honest with you, but I won't. But yeah, and so after that, we were all just kind of reeling and you know, like just all excited because we just got to meet and hang out with one of our you know, I know for me and for Steve, one of our idols. And so where to from there? We got some really good Thai food that was open late. And we all talked after that and walked around the city until about 1 in the morning. Had a great time. Steve and I, of course, always get along very well. And really, yeah, it would be nice. I think both of us decided, you know, that we want to get together more often because we really like hanging out together. His girlfriend got along really well with Sophia. And, you know, we want to do some stuff together. I keep bothering him to work with me to get a live thing together for us, because I think if we did a bit of a live circuit around here, you know, Indianapolis, Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, Columbus, that kind of stuff, we could do some serious damage, I think, as far as bringing crowds out, because Steve's got his own people, I got my own people, and I think in the Venn diagram of that, there's enough crossover that the people who don't know me, who like him, would probably like me, and vice versa. So I think it would be great, and it would be fun. And yeah, so, and of course, those kinds of things, going back to this whole reason for me thanking you guys, if I even got to do something like that, it would be largely thanks to you guys supporting me financially the way that you do, so that I can think about these kinds of things as possibilities now, doing a tour and maybe not having to freak out as much about money. I mean, tours are famously, for people like me, the game of how to lose as little money as possible, because you're never going to make money, you're just going to lose it. But you end up making contacts with people, and maybe over time, further subsequent tours and things will make more money. And that's hopefully the idea. But the initial one is always just ride around and, you know, and do it and hope for the best. So if I did get to put something like that together, you guys' support would be paramount to that coming to pass. So that said, it's 37 minutes here, and thank you for hanging out with me while I told you the story of my crazy weekend. The rest of the weekend was cool. I went to an egg hunt with my daughter, put on by Medieval Times in the park on the lake, and sat there and underestimated all that wind in my pea coat and shivered my face off. But she had a blast, and we ate at a really amazing Russian restaurant as well, as a whole family. And that's it. That was the trip. I'm glad to be back home. I've got a new video game to play because Far Cry 5 just came out, so I'm pretty excited about that. I'm a big fan of the Far Cry series. And yeah, and you know, as of tomorrow, it's going to be back to it. I got a bunch more orders to go out the door this week. I've got some new releases to finish putting together. I'm going to be doing more of the live streaming thing this week. So even if it's not performance stuff, it's definitely going to be, I'm going to be calling up John Paul, who helped me film the Country Low mini doc thing, to follow me around in here with a camera while I like play with the machines and show you this is a Boss DR 550, you know, and that kind of bullshit. So, because that's, I'm not going to be able to do that and play cameraman at the same time. So all that's coming up. And also, it's April 1st, so if there's anyone among the list of you celebrating, I hope you had a happy Passover. I hope you're having a happy Easter. I celebrated neither, beyond getting an Easter basket together for my daughter. But that does not preclude me from being able to wish you all a happy one. So, yeah, thank you for everything. And of course, since it's also, April 1st, the patron pledges are going to be going through and being charged. So, yeah, that means I'm back on it this week or you know, maybe the next weekend for sending out everyone's reward emails. So if you're watching this, think about what you want if you're on one of the tiers that gets to pick a disc every month or pick 3 discs or whatever it is. Just be thinking about that, and or even just let me know before I get a hold of you is fine. That's not going to bother me. But yeah, thank you for everything. And here's to monologue videos, I guess. Brian being the unexpected internet talking head. So, yeah. So now I'm gonna go get something to drink because I'm fucking hoarse. And, yeah. Oof. Oh, one last thing I can show you before I sign off. These came in the mail after I left. This is kind of cool. I don't know how well it'll show up. It's the new Soma Sci-Fi stamper with the Impossible Square logo and the web address, and of course my snarky tagline of 0 BPM because it's beatless. And if you guys haven't checked it out, that label is getting along very interestingly. I've issued 3 amazing records by David Baraston from Australia, who goes by the name NYZ, Noise Lab, Brian Telco. He's got a bunch of different weird names, but he's like a synth wizard, and he's friends with Richard D. James and Chris Watson and all these heavyweight people, and he does residencies at like important records and all that. It's just the dude's on another level. So being able to work with him and release his music is huge for me. And he's done 3 really big records for me at that label so far. I've done some solo stuff there that's been very influenced by stuff like Richard Chartier, Francisco Lopez. I'm getting into making very, very minimal quiet stuff now that I'm up here in the Midwest, and the winters kind of bring that out of me, because I never really had like proper winters down in South Carolina. But yeah, there's other records coming from an amazing group of musicians. I got a bunch of amazing modular synthesizer drones from Oxynucid under the name Yorkshire Modular Society. I have an Ambient Media Them box set. I've got a collaboration I did with Peter Wright from New Zealand in 2009 that never came out. No, 2009. It's a big, huge, like 70-minute behemoth thing, and that's put me and him back in touch. And I've opened the door for him to do something at the label as well. Peter Wright's fantastic. I got a demo from a Japanese guy that I've never heard of before, and he does all mixer feedback, which is interesting. And I think he's going to be doing something for the label. I have an amazing improvisation on a Rhodes electric piano from Aryan Shat. There's already a double, huge, like 4-disc split between myself and Aryan of our ambient work. And yeah, and even John Paul has a record coming out there by this next coming winter, because it's a winter-themed record, so that's going to have to wait pretty much all year to come out. And also JP and I have been doing our OCR releases over there exclusively, which the OCR project is the beatless sister project of Occur. So for every Occur release, there's going to be a beatless OCR release as well, and those have been really interesting so far. And the whole catalog also just ended up on Boomcat, which is kind of new for me. That was all because Baraston's work has way more recognition than mine. But the good news is they took the whole catalog, and so hopefully it means a little bit more visibility for the stuff I'm doing, and maybe even the door open for sending in some of my own work on platforms like Boomcat, where I have 0 distribution for Milieu Music because I don't know. I think honestly a lot of these shops just get overwhelmed looking at my catalog and just like, fucking no. So that's the problem with being prolific, is people just assume it's just a headache. And for the most part, they're not wrong. Not for the most part. I'd say maybe about 50% of the time, 40% of the time, it can be a headache. But it can also be a lot of fun. So, and that's why I'm here. So take it easy. Enjoy, I guess, the rest of your Sunday, wherever you are in the world. Maybe it's not Sunday anymore, but it is here. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Later.